Hey, this is Matt Urtz, your Madison County historian. We are still recording these interviews with different folks talking about how COVID-19 has impacted their businesses, organizations, and lives. And today we're very lucky to have Jason Mitchell, the superintendent of the Madison Central School District. Jason, thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Talk a little bit about when COVID first appeared kind of on your radar and how you guys started to prep a little bit, knowing what could, in theory, happen.
Yeah, so, when it started to hit the news and folks were talking about potential school closings, we started some early work around that preparation. And it happened to coincide with a week where we had a superintendent's conference day planned. And our superintendent's conference day was planned for Friday. But we figured that if need be, we'd move it to Monday, bring our teachers in, have them spend a day working to make this transition in basically 24 hours from face-to-face instruction to remote learning. And it came to pass that that's what we ended up having to do. We shifted our day to that Monday and had teachers come in, do their work in preparation for sharing at that point with students just 2 weeks of information. We weren't sure how long these closures were going to last. The governor did it 2 weeks at a time. But really there was not a lot of an opportunity to prep up front. Maybe that's, short-sightedness from schools, but we knew that it might be coming and basically just put a plan together to give teachers a chance to prep.
Okay. You kind of referenced it went along in 2-week increments. Talk about how it changed from that superintendent's day to 2 weeks later. All right, we're going to be extended again to now we're closed for the rest of the school year. Talk about how you guys have adapted and what you're still working on.
Sure. So we started not knowing the outcome and having a lot of concerns about accessibility and equity for kids, from a home situation with regard to who knows, if there are parents at home helping, parents at work, kids with grandparents, kids who have to work. We didn't know those kinds of situations on top of our internet connectivity for families. We have significant rural area in the community. Because we had some concerns about access and equity up front, our initial few weeks of work was all review work, stuff that students had previously done, and then teachers provided them with review opportunities around that. Then when it became clear we were closed for additional time, we changed to new instruction on new material. And we've set up a process that every time we've been extended, teachers have had an opportunity to come into the building. We've done a sign-up sheet where no more than 8 teachers can be in our complex at one time, to keep the social distancing in place. And they come in, they prepare the materials to either be sent electronically, which is, we've gotten to a place where we've been able to do most of our work electronically, but we do still have some families that need to receive hard copy of materials. So they come in and they prepare those materials. We're right now in our third time doing this with them preparing materials. And each time we said, you probably ought to think, yes, it's 2 weeks, but expect that maybe it's going to be longer and think about material out front of that. And then this last closure, of course, is now they've got to prepare material for a little more than a month. So they've had an opportunity over 2 weeks to come in. Usually we do it within a 1 week period. A big change for us in regards to your question has been around internet connectivity. We really tried to track all of our families that were having difficulties connecting. And we've purchased Chromebooks with built-in hotspots that we've distributed to families. We've also purchased a couple just hotspots that we've distributed to families to try to get connections with folks. But of course, hotspots depend upon good cell service as well. And there are some spots in our district where cell service is poor and internet service is not available. But I think we've done a really good job. To venture a guess, I'd say we're 95% or better of our families now have connectivity. But we still do provide a hard copy of materials to families if they don't have that connectivity.
Okay. Talk about how once the governor announced that schools would be closed, how does that impact you? Does that make it easier because now you know, okay, at least we're through the end of the year? Does it make it more difficult? Did you guys have a plan kind of thinking that might happen? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is both. I think instructionally it's become easier because teachers now know I'm planning for the rest of the year. Kids know I'm planning for the rest of the year. And we're doing one more kind of delivery of material. Our bus drivers, every time the teachers come in, they prepare stuff, bus drivers come in, we load up buses, we deliver the hard copy of stuff. We know this is our last time making that type of delivery. So on the instructional side, I think peace of mind is probably not the right phrase to use, but that's what came to my mind. So I'll use it, I guess, that now we know, at least we have an answer. We're not doing this 2 week at a time thing. We know that it's till the end of the year, so we can prepare materials and be prepared to finish the year. So of course, there's some debate around what the end of the year actually is, which we don't have to get into unless you want to.
Okay.
Some of the things that I think are more challenging now that we know, or maybe not more challenged, but now we know we have to face these decisions, are things like graduation. Our class advisors and our high school principal have been talking with the kids, and one of the things our kids don't want is a virtual graduation. That's kind of their last choice, and we understand why. So we're keeping that on the table as an option, but we're hoping that maybe things might change where sometime over the summer we might be able to get them, a graduation ceremony in person. So things like that become our challenge now. How are we going to, had we been able to reopen, we probably could have held the graduation like we normally would have, but now we know we can't do that. We've got other questions about stuff in kids' lockers and in classrooms and things like that have to be addressed. Yearbooks, we have yearbooks will be delivered soon, and usually kids, share yearbooks and sign yearbooks in school. We're going to get them their yearbooks, but then, they're missing out on the opportunity. So the challenge now is kind of an emotional challenge, I'd say, for a lot of us, in that we know that kids are going to be robbed of some of those opportunities that we all had when we were in school. I think we were holding out hope that there'd be a chance that they'd get some of these things as they usually would. And now we know that's not going to be the case, so senior trip, prom, all those kinds of things that we're still holding out and haven't made a final decision on those things, that they're canceled, that maybe if things change, they might have an opportunity to do something. It might not be the trip they originally planned, but maybe they could get something in. But that, of course, relies upon executive orders from the governor and whether or not we meet the 7 criteria, et cetera, et cetera. So on the instructional side, I think it's a little easier to know that we're closed now for good. And as I say, kind of on that emotional side, I think it's now reality check for a lot of folks.
Okay. Talk about where during this whole response, you feel like you guys have exceeded the expectations you had, and spots where you think you guys could improve on, because again, this is such a fluid situation. You're obviously learning new things. Talk a little bit about what's going well and what you feel like you guys got to work on.
I would tell you, I've been very happy with our teachers' response. They were asked basically to change their mode of instruction overnight. And by and large, I think they've successfully done that and made good connections with kids remotely. So that's one where, I've been very pleased. I think another spot where I've been very pleased is our meal distribution. We did a sign-up sheet, and that's something where, I know other districts have just done meals for all. And we did a sign-up sheet, and I don't know if that was the right thing to do or not, but we did, and we've communicated. I basically have a weekly communication with the community where we remind them that lunches and breakfasts are available. And we are probably now, we're distributing daily to 250, 260 meals. So that's breakfast and lunch together. We're up over 6,000 meals we've distributed since we closed. And for a district like Madison, we've got about 470 students. You know, we're probably getting meals to about a quarter of our population. So I'm happy about that. But our free and reduced lunch rate is higher than 25%. So, you know, I do worry a little bit. Have we responded to all the families who might be in need? But we've communicated widely about it and given folks an opportunity to ask that they need assistance. And our numbers have risen. You know, when we first started, we were probably 120 meals in a day. Now that's doubled. I can't say that you know, that I'm disappointed in this next thing, but if you're talking about something that we need to make sure that we're able to do better or well, we haven't done it yet. But the thing that's really on my radar is what's the fall going to look like?
That's my next question.
Yes, you know, I'm not a medical professional, but you know, I can't imagine it will be normal if we don't have a vaccine that's been widely distributed by that point. And, you know, if you listen to Dr. Fauci, he's saying the earliest for a vaccine is going to be January. Right. So come the fall, there's a lot of questions to be answered. And, you know, hopefully we receive guidance from state ed department and from the governor. But if we can't all be here together at the same time, what is that going to look like? You know, so our first conversation has been around a combination of distance learning and in-person learning. You know, maybe it's and this is spitballing really. This is not decision making. This is ideas on the table. Is it some of your kids are here, some of your kids are at home, but the teacher's virtually available to all at the same time? So right now it's different. You know, there's video lessons, there's office hours, there's Zoom meetings to check in and things of that nature. The fall might become a regularly scheduled day and kid responsibility to show up for period one, even if I'm sitting at home, and attendance will be taken and things of that nature. And is it I'm virtual Monday, I'm in class Tuesday, virtual Wednesday, or is it, this is my virtual week, next week's my in-person week? You know, don't know, but and that's just the instructional piece. Then you've got to figure out how do we get kids to school while socially distancing. You know, a bus capacity is 60 to 70 kids, but then if you got to distance kids 6 feet apart, can you even get everybody in one bus run?
Right.
How do you go through a cafeteria line when you're supposed to be 6 feet apart and your lunch period is half an hour long? Does your lunch period now have to become an hour long? You know, I don't know. You've got to wait for the person in front of you to move 6 feet ahead. That's going to definitely slow down that kind of process. Interscholastic sports come the fall. You know, we have soccer teams. There's a lot of contact in soccer, 22 kids on the field and rubbing shoulders and being up close and team huddles and fans in the stands. All of those things are things that we have a lot of uncertainty about that we're going to have to plan for. And I just hope we don't have to plan for it kind of overnight like we had planned for our initial closing. But, you know, by and large, to kind of sum up on your original question, I think we've been very happy with the way things have gone. There are students who aren't as connected, but we don't know the reasons why. You know, and in some cases, they could be working, it could be family situation, who knows. But I think, you know, we've been very pleased with our response and with the community's support and patience. Like you said, when we started, things are changing so frequently. Our families want answers on certain things, you know, but they've been awesome. They've been patient with us and understood that we don't know yet. And a lot of my communication has been I don't have answers for you, or, I have to wait for the governor to make a decision, and our community has been very supportive and very patient. We've been very appreciative of that.
One last question, and you kind of touched on this with the last thing. Do you feel like this will change the classroom setting for future students? Or do you feel like once we have a vaccine and we get through this, it'll go back to normal? Or is it going to be some kind of, I mean, you're the first one I've talked to that post Governor Cuomo's talking to the Gates Foundation and that kind of stuff. Do you think it's going to be permanently different, a little different, or it's going to go back to normal?
Well, I would combine your first two, a little different and permanently different. I think that's where my answer would fall. Our message administratively to our teachers from the beginning here is that we have an opportunity with this experience to learn a lot about different ways we can connect with our students. The traditional classroom setting that Governor Cuomo referenced, and, I didn't read his comment as we're going to shut schools down and, everything's going to be virtual or remote. I think some people did read that. I understand why. And, I think he could have been a little more cautious in his statements for sure. But our message administratively from the beginning is we can certainly learn from this. And we can do things differently, and we should do things differently. We can do more flipped classroom type activities with our kids. Now, more than ever, our kids have connectivity because we were forced to, purchase more hotspots and Chromebooks with built-in hotspots for those families that didn't previously have connectivity. We want to see our teachers embrace some of these changes and see how they can infuse them into their instruction. I don't believe in my lifetime the classroom setting is going to go away, but I think there are definitely practices that are beneficial for kids and more engaging for kids that we can learn from this. Instructionally, there are also some other things that, I think, at least in our district, this has forced some kind of reflection on grading practices and the traditional 0 to 100 point scale, which I'll try not to get too soapboxy on you, but personally, I philosophically am against the 0 to 100 scale. I think it is statistically against the kid. We've gone in the fourth marking period to a 1 through 4 scale grading, which is, I think, more fair to students. But teachers, myself included when I was a teacher, they hang on to that 0 to 100. It's because it's what they know, and, kids hang on to it, and parents hang on to it. And that some of our grading practices over time, I think, have been, a bit unfair. And they've also encouraged competition between kids, which I think in this kind of environment, we've talked about, it doesn't matter what other kids are doing. It's you. Let's focus on you. Let's focus on making sure that you're successful. So I think there's some mindset things that we can embrace as well around all of our practices, instructional practices, grading practices, communication practices with families. I think that we've been forced to be better communicators with our families, and that's a great thing. And hopefully that we can maintain some of those changes. So I think we're going to be back in school at some point after the vaccine. Like I said, I don't think the classroom setting is going away, but I certainly hope we bring in some of these positives that we certainly can take away from this experience.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the parents, students, and teachers of the Madison School District?
Sure. I referenced it a little bit. I think that there are still a lot of unanswered questions, particularly around events for kids, things that they've missed, graduation being one of them. We've continued to work on options for our students and want to do something that is meaningful for them and to give them these opportunities to have those events, those rites of passages before they leave or come back next year, whatever the case may be. But continue to be patient with us, because we can't make a decision today. If we were going to make a decision today on graduation, for example, it would be virtual. but the students have told us they don't want that. So we're trying to buy some time for things to maybe change where we can look at another opportunity for them where we might be able to do something in person. But that, to do that, we have to ask them to be patient and understand that the decision might not be made soon. And the other piece is, continue to encourage students to do their work, engage with their classmates, engage with their teachers. I think there's some kids who maybe think the year's over, but my message is our work isn't done yet. And if you're struggling to getting your students to do work at home, reach out to your teachers, your students' teachers, reach out to our guidance counselors, reach out to our administrators, and we'll all work together to get kids engaged, because I'm concerned about educational instructional gaps when we move into next year. While our teachers are doing a great job, it's still not the same as being in front of their students on a day-to-day basis, the personal interactions and engagements. And kids will come into next year with instructional gaps because of what's happened here. And if they shut down, those are going to be even worse. So I would just encourage our kids and our families to stay the course for another month and a week or so, and engage and do the work and do the best you can in the situation we've been given here. So I guess that's it.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, Superintendent Mitchell. We hope to talk to you some point soon down the road when times are better.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time, Matt.
All right. Bye now.
Take care.